Today I'm going to be taking a break from what I usually do on this channel, which is making clues for you. Instead, I'm going to be solving someone else's puzzle. So if you've never solved a cryptic crossword, it's pretty simple in concept. Basically, you have these clues that read as normal sentences, but secretly, they're actually split into two sections. One part of this sentence will be the phrase or word that defines the answer you're looking for, and the other part will be a way to get to that answer through wordplay, where you're kind of jumbling up letters and switching words for synonyms and doing all sorts of things to get to your answer. If that doesn't make sense immediately, just stick around, and as I solve the puzzle, it will become clear. So today I'm going to be solving a puzzle from a setter called Sammisamsam, who makes a puzzle every week on a website called Crossword. Now, I don't know who this person is, but I've been doing their puzzles for quite a while and I think they are fantastic. Obviously, this person is an amateur setter, or I think they probably are, so they aren't setting in a newspaper, but generally their clues are basically at the standard that you would expect from a newspaper. So they're a really great introduction to cryptic crosswords, and I hope that I'll be able to solve this puzzle for you today and it will get you excited and interested to have a go yourself. If you do want to follow along, I'll be linking their puzzle in the description, so you can try and solve it alongside me, or you can have a go at solving it now and then come back to see how I got on. With that being said, let's have a look at the puzzle. Okay, so the first thing to know when you're looking at cryptic crosswords and how to solve them is that your literal section, that is the part of the clue that defines what you're looking for, is either at the beginning or the end. So in this first clue, it could be library or Library of Congress, or it could be sections, right? The split has to be somewhere in the middle. So the first thing I'm looking for when I'm thinking about how to pass a clue is, okay, what part of this clue might make sense as a literal? And sections could be the literal. Burger King's sections couldn't really, because there's not a word that is defined by Burger King sections. And then library could be the literal. Library of Congress could be the literal, right? So there are a few options here. The next thing I'm looking at is what section do I think is likely to be wordplay? And the way I'm kind of figuring that out is I'm looking for words that are indicators, words that kind of tell you to do something. Because if I can spot those words, it suggests to me that that section has to be wordplay, right? So here I'm seeing the word enters. And enters very often tells you to put something in something else. If you enter something, you go inside it, right? So I'm thinking it's telling us that Library of Congress enters Burger King or Burger Kings. Okay, which would tell us that sections is going to be our literal. So I think we're trying to find a word that means sections. And we're going to get there through Library of Congress entering Burger Kings. I don't know this abbreviation, but Library of Congress could be LC maybe, or LOC. So maybe we're putting LOC or LC inside Burger King's. Burger King is often BK, so maybe it's BK or BKS. And if we put LOC inside BKS, we get blocks, and blocks are sections. So I think that's probably right. LOC is Library of Congress, and that's entering BK apostrophe S, Burger King's BKS. Okay, that gives us an S in 4 down. Fires Goldman's partner, I hear. Okay, this is a lovely clue. So the first thing I'm seeing here is I hear. That's a very common indicator for a homophone, that is a word that sounds like another word. So we're looking for a synonym of Goldman's partner, and then that's going to sound exactly like a word that means fires. Okay, well from there it's relatively easy. Goldman's partner in Goldman and Sachs, which is a famous company, would be Sachs, right? And Sachs sounds like the word for fires. Sacks, if you fire someone, you sack them. Now we have 2 down, a rope thrown off after an unfinished yogurt drink. Okay. Okay, so I'm seeing after here, which is usually a juxtaposition indicator. That's saying that thrown off maybe goes after a word for an unfinished yogurt drink. An unfinished could be a deletion indicator. It's saying that a word doesn't finish. So we're removing the last letter from a word. So if that's right, then we'd be looking for a word meaning a rope or rope, and we're going to get that through thrown off going after an unfinished yogurt drink. So we're looking for yogurt drinks beginning with L. Okay, lassie, unfinished, gives us S, and then a rope thrown could be a lasso. So I guess maybe you can abbreviate off to O. I haven't seen that before, but I think that's probably right. So a rope or a rope thrown is lasso, and we get that by getting yogurt drink, lassie, removing the last letter because it's unfinished, giving us lass, and then off is going after that for our O. Don't fully understand how that one works, but I think that's probably right. Okay, so we now have two crossing letters for 12 across. XXX mixes. So, I mean, one thing I can say about this is it's very likely a double definition clue. When you have kind of 2 words, 3 words, there's really not any space for wordplay. So that means the clue doesn't work like a traditional cryptic where you have one section that's a definition and another section that is wordplay. Instead, it is that both words, or I guess XXX isn't a word, but both parts defines the same answer. So we're looking for something that could be defined by XXX and also could be defined by mixes. Now, whether I can find that word is a different question. These are X's. Sorry, this is super obvious to everybody else. I guess they're, okay, I think it's crosses. These are, if an X is a cross, then these are multiple crosses. If you mix a dog breed, you cross it, right? So mixes could be crosses. Okay. 3 down, forces wet makeup like some eyeliners. Okay, so a couple things to say here. There's a question mark, and where we see a question mark, we're basically being told that there's something weird going on with the clue. More often than not, that's that the literal is unintuitive. You're thinking about the literal word in a way that you wouldn't expect, right? So, okay, make up can be an anagram indicator. So we've got 9 letters here, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 letters here. Okay, so anagrams, how do they work in cryptics? An anagram indicator, that is a word that tells you to do an anagram, can basically be any word that suggests that you jumble up something, that something is mixed, it's wrong, it's moving. So make up, when not read as like the makeup that you put on your face, but something's made up, it's constructed. It's telling you to make up, to construct, forces wet. And the other important thing to know about anagrams is that you can't have an indirect anagram. So basically the letters as they appear in the clue, almost always, are the letters that you need to jumble up. So that means that if you know you're looking for a 9-letter answer, you can count the letters of what you think might be being anagrammed, and if they are also 9 letters, you can be pretty certain that's what you're doing. So we have 9 letters in forces wet. I think that we're anagramming forces wet, and that's going to give us a word that can be defined by like some eyeliners. Now, because there's a question mark, we can expect that that's going to be a kind of unintuitive way of reading, like some eyeliners. I don't know. I'm not sure here. So we'll kind of come back to it maybe when we've got some more crossing letters, but we think we know how it works. Okay. 8 down. Spooner's snake rate. Okay, so a spoonerism is a pretty uncommon indicator, and it's a very obvious one as well. Basically, you can only be told that you're doing a spoonerism with this word spooner. So if you see spooner in a clue, you basically know what you have to do. What is a spoonerism? I might struggle to put this in particularly concise words, but basically, if you have a duosyllabic word or phrase, then a spoonerism would take the first consonants of each syllable and swap them around. So for example, laptop, a spoonerism of laptop would be taplop, or fungi, a spoonerism of fungi would be gunfi, right? So Spooner's snake rate is probably telling us to find a word for snake and make it a spoonerism, and that will give us a word for rate. Okay, and a snake can be a serpent. So if we spoonerize serpent, we get percent, which I suppose we're supposed to read as percent. So our answer for this clue is percent. All right. Now we've got quite a few crossing letters here. So let's have a look. Covers English scones that contain a bit of chocolate. Okay. So once again, we know that the literal either has to be at the end or the beginning of the clue, right? And I can see at the end, we've got contain a bit of chocolate, that contain a bit of chocolate. And that really seems like wordplay to me. I'll explain why in a second. So that tells me that almost certainly covers is our literal. So looking for a word that means covers, and we're going to get there through English scones that contain a bit of chocolate. Now, English can be very commonly abbreviated to either E or EN, and that makes a lot of sense because we've got an E in first position here. So either we have our E here from English, or we're also going to find an N in second position as an abbreviation of English. And then the rest of the clue is going to be scones or scones that contain a bit of chocolate. Now, why do I think that this is wordplay? Well, a bit of is a way of saying a little sliver of the word, right? So a bit of chocolate would be its first letter, C. And that's used really quite a lot in cryptic clues. So a bit of chocolate is asking us to put C inside a word for scones. Or maybe just scones. We have, if this was EN, we have the S in the right position. In sconces, maybe is a word that means covers. I don't know the word, but it sounds like it might be a word. I'm going to leave it there, and if the crossing letters seem to cause us trouble elsewhere, then we can come back and change it. 14 across. Girl penetrating naked bump. Okay. Penetrating is often an indicator for containment. It's saying that an abbreviation or a synonym of girl is penetrating, it's going inside a word for naked. So that tells us bump is probably our literal. I'm leaning towards an abbreviation rather than a synonym, just because it's quite a short clue. We have 5 letters in this clue. So there's not really much space for, I don't know, a synonym of a girl, like Anne is pretty common for girl, like A-N-E or A-N-N-E, because that appears in a lot of words, right? But girl penetrating, we need to put something inside a word for naked. I think that's probably just going to be G. Girl can be abbreviated to G. That's going inside, if you're naked, you're nude. So A nudge would be a bump. I think that's our answer there. So nude for naked, and G from girl is penetrating that, it's going inside it, giving us nudge. And if you bump someone, you nudge them. All right, let's have a look at 5 down. Large mustelid heard in a crevice. Okay, so heard is very often a homophone indicator. It's telling us that we hear something, it sounds like something. So maybe we're looking for a word for a large mustelid, and that sounds like a word for a crevice. But I'll be frank with you, I don't actually know what a mustelid is. So I think maybe we come back to this one once we have some more crossing letters. So let's have a look at this section of the clue then. 15 down. Adorned with fancy coded electronic art. So with can be a link word here, telling us that basically this is where the split is, this is where the equal sign is. Adorned can provide the same answer as fancy coded electronic art. So we're looking for a word that means adorned maybe, and we're going to get that through fancy coded electronic art. So fancy can be an anagram indicator, and then we have 5 letters encoded, 3 letters in art, giving us 8 letters. And then if you remember earlier, I said that you can't have an indirect anagram. That basically means you can't switch a word for a synonym and then jumble up the letters, because that leads to this kind of like almost infinite possible range of answers. But what you can have is an abbreviation going into an anagram, and electronic is very often abbreviated to E, right? Electronic mail is email. So maybe it's coded E art being made fancy, being anagrammed, giving us a word meaning adorned. Okay, sorry, that took me a second of thinking, but I think the answer is decorated. Coded E art can be anagrammed to decorated, and if you adorned something, you decorated it. All right, let's have a look at 19 across then. Let's cut crazily with abandon. Okay, lots of anagrams going on here. I'm pretty sure, or very often, crazily is an anagram indicator. Again, we're seeing with here as an equal sign. Or maybe we're not, maybe it means with abandon. Literal is either abandon or with abandon. And we're going to get there through the 7 letters in let's cut, I think, being anagrammed. Okay, I'm not sure I know this one. I can't find it at least, so we'll come back to it. Let's have a look at 23 across. Switzerland substituted for India in satirical constant. I wanted to read that as content, but okay, satirical constant. That's a bit of a weird phrasing here, so I reckon constant is probably our literal. That would make sense because we've got some wordplay stuff going on here. Switzerland can be abbreviated to CH. I can't remember why it's the country's abbreviation, but I'm not sure what it stands for. Okay, so CH swapped in, right, substituted for India, which can be abbreviated to an I in satirical. So I reckon we're looking for a word that means satirical, and we're going to remove an I from that word and replace it with a CH. And that's going to give us a word meaning constant. Okay, so if something's satirical, it is ironic, and we're taking the I away from ironic, and we're replacing that with CH for Switzerland, and that gives us the word chronic. And if you have chronic pain, you have constant pain, right? Okay, 22 down. Climb something on the outside of a lizard. Okay, weird surface. I think the answer is just scale, and this is a double definition. So, okay, climb, if you climb a mountain, you scale a mountain, and something on the outside of a lizard is, of course, a scale, right? So these are two ways of getting to the word scale. You could probably do some other good double definitions with that word, because scale is in like something you weigh yourself on. There's lots of different ways of thinking about scale. Interesting. Okay. Platers skinned next. Okay, this is a nice, easy clue. So skinned is an indicator basically telling you to remove the skin of a word, right? If you skin something, you remove the skin of it. And if you kind of think abstractly about words and how they're formed, the skin of a word would be its kind of outside letters. So we're taking platers and we're removing its skin, the S and the P, and we get the word later. And next is a synonym of later. Right, never changes heart. Well, it looks like we're just anagramming never. Changes, pretty nice, clear anagram indicator. We have the right amount of letters in never, and I can see in the clue we have 2 letters from never. So we're looking for a word that means heart, and the word is nerve. That's a nice simple clue. Wonderful. Yeah, if you have a lot of heart, you have a lot of nerve, right? So never changes. It's anagrammed and it becomes nerve. All right. Stick here after now. I'm not. After is a juxtaposition indicator. Usually, so it's saying a word for here is going after a word for now. Maybe 1 or 2 of those are abbreviations. This one's not super easy to pass. I reckon we're looking for a word meaning stick. Not sure. Okay. 20 down. Authorization to notice deceit out loud. Okay, I think this is another homophone indicator. Out loud is telling you to say something out loud, right? So we're looking for a word for deceit, or maybe 2 words, right? A word for notice and a word for deceit. You're saying that out loud, and it gives you a word for authorization. Okay, let me have a think about that. Nope, I've got no idea. And this is always horrible when you kind of get stuck on a side and you can't break into a new section of the puzzle. So we're just going to have to go in raw over on the right-hand side and see if we can work our way around that way. Let's go for 26 down. A crime discovered in parsonage. Okay, nice. This is a relatively simple one. If you discover something in it, you might just find the word in it, right? So we're looking for a word for a crime, and we can discover that word inside the word parsonage. And you can see that inside parsonage we have the word arson, which is, of course, a crime. All right. That gives us an N in 30 across. Grooms present, almost assembled. Okay. Present can often be swapped for like here. If you're present, you're here, or maybe now. And then assemble could be an anagram indicator, but I mean, yeah, I'm not sure how to pass this one. It feels like this section's the wordplay, so we're probably looking for a word meaning grooms, but I'm not sure what it is, so we'll come back to it. Let's go for 25 across. Many Egyptians follow a pair of scarlet beetles. Okay. So weirdly, a long time ago actually, way before I started making videos, one of my puzzles featured this word and used a very similar concept in the wordplay. So I'll give you the answer and then I'll explain how it works. The word is scarabs. And here the setter is using many Egyptians to give you Arabs. And I did something very similar. So Arabs follow, come after a pair of scarlet, and that's saying a couple of letters from scarlet, SC. So SC followed by Arabs for many Egyptians, because many Egyptians are Arabs, and that gives you a word for beetles, scarabs. It's a nice clue. Okay. 25 down, reject, blame, supporting South Carolina. Okay, so South Carolina, you see states usually they're part of the wordplay because they all have abbreviations, right? So I think South Carolina's abbreviation is SC. So I'm quite confident putting SC in here. And blame is supporting it. That means it's kind of going underneath it in the down clue, right? So we're looking for a word meaning reject, and it's going to be SC for South Carolina, and then underneath a word for blame. If you reject something, you scrap it. I think maybe rap is a synonym of blame. You have like a rap sheet, don't you? Okay, I'm gonna go with that. I think that seems okay. Again, if any of the crossing letters seem troubling, then we can go back and change it. Endure for each blister spoken. Okay, lots of homophone indicators in this puzzle. Nice. Well, we're getting a lot of practice with homophones. Spoken again is telling us to say. I think probably here, each blister, because 4 is our equal sign. So we're looking for a word meaning endure, and we're going to get that word from a synonym of each, a synonym of blister, and when we say it out loud, it's going to give us our answer. So each is very often per. Synonyms of blister. Okay, I've got it. So for each is per, and then a blister can be a cyst. So each blister is persist, and if you endure, you persist. Nice. Okay. Okay, 21 across. Lucas Terrier's outside class. Okay, well, outside is often an abbreviator telling you to take the outside letters of a clue, right? So we could have CS here, but that wouldn't make sense because we've got an E in last position. We could also have TS, but again, we've got an E in last position. And I'm almost certain that persist is right. So outside is doing something else here. The other thing to say is Lucas Terrier. I mean, maybe that's a famous person, I don't know, but it seems like a bit of a strange couple of words. And usually when I see that, that's telling me that something weird's going on, like it's an anagram or an intermittent or a hidden. But I didn't know that outside can really tell you to do any of that. I'm not sure. Okay, again, we'll come back to it. Not doing very well today, I apologize. Okay, let's go back and have a look at this clue. Grooms present, almost assembled. We do have a P and an N here, which makes me feel like present. It can't go straight in the clue, the N's not in the right spot. Well, assemble can be an anagram indicator. Okay, so I think we're taking present almost, which means we're removing the last letter of present, which gives us present, and we're anagramming, we're assembling those letters, and that's going to give us a word meaning grooms. Weirdly tough anagram clue, or maybe I was just being silly. The answer is preens. And we're thinking about grooms in the sense of maintaining, right? If an animal grooms themselves, they preen themselves. And preens is an anagram of present. All right, happy to get that one. Let's have a look at this one here. Fruit for ace intern is off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is off, I think, is an anagram indicator here. So we're looking for a word for a fruit, and we're going to get that equals for an anagram of ace intern. So give me a second to think about ace intern being anagrammed. Okay, our answer here is nectarine. A nectarine is a fruit, and it is an anagram of the letters in ace intern. All right, we have a lot of crossing letters for 28 across. Let's have a look at this one. A daffodil for a fed is suspicious. Okay, I don't know how it works, but I think I know the answer. And that's just because I quite like Greek mythology. A daffodil, a word for a type of daffodil, is a narcissus. And that comes from the story of Narcissus, who was so in love with himself that he couldn't stop himself from looking at his reflection in the water. And that's where we get the word narcissistic from. We're like Narcissus, we're self-obsessed, right? But in that story, Narcissus is punished, I believe, by Hera and turned into a flower, which is why this type of daffodil is called a narcissus. Okay, I did a lot of work explaining that. I might not even be right. Let's see if we can figure out the answer of the clue, or how the clue works. Okay, so a daffodil is a narcissus. 4 equals a fed, can be a narc. I don't know what the A is doing there. Could just be a daffodil for fed. But narc is, so giving us narciss, and then if something's suspicious, it is sus, narcissus. Wonderful. Okay, let's look at 16 across then. Snake, me and her cut out heroin. Okay, this one's relatively nice and easy. The only thing you really have to know is that heroin can be abbreviated to H. You see it relatively often in cryptics. So heroin is abbreviated to H. It's telling you to cut out H in me and her. And if you do so, you get the word meander. And if a road snakes, it kind of goes, it's winding, it goes back and forth, then it meanders. So snake is meander. Okay. 5 down then. Ah, gosh, that's the mustard clue. I still don't know what that is. All right, let's try 7 down. Menaces trash teen in disguise. Okay, this one is a really interesting clue. And that's because in disguise can be an anagram indicator, and so can menaces, I think. And trash teen is 9 letters long. So either menaces is telling us to anagram trash teen, and we're looking for a word that means in disguise, or in disguise is an anagram indicator for trash teen, and we're looking for a word meaning menaces. So let me think about where we can go from trash teen. Give me a moment. Okay, so in disguise was our anagram indicator, and that actually makes a lot more sense. Menaces is maybe a bit of a weird way to clue an anagram indicator. You probably want it to be menacing rather than menaces. So, okay. The answer is threatens, I think. If someone menaces, they threaten. And an anagram of trash teens is the word threatens. 5 across. Every other film is ritzy and coquettish. That is a lovely surface. Relatively clear what we're doing here as well. Every other is an intermittent indicator. That's telling you that you want to take every other letter from a string of letters. So an and can be our equal sign. So I think it's probably going to be every other letter from film is ritzy, and that equals a word meaning coquettish. Okay, so we know that the T is in second last position, which tells us that this T from ritzy is going in. So I think the last letter is going to be Y, and then we're just counting back. So R, and then I, L, F. The answer is flirty. 6 down. Model reportedly sighted fish. I'm smiling because I think this is another homophone indicator. It's a puzzle full of anagrams and homophones, which is no bad thing. I like both. So reportedly is telling you to report on something, to speak it. And so we're reportedly I think probably a word or a phrase for sighted fish, giving you a word for model. Yeah, nice. Okay, so if you sighted something, you eyed it, and a fish can be an eel. So ideal is a word meaning model. The ideal citizen is the model citizen. Very nice clue. It's one of my favorites probably from the puzzle. 11 across. Dear friend evenly went awry. Okay, evenly is often an intermittent indicator. So we're probably looking for every other letter from dear friend, giving us something meaning went awry, or we're looking for every other letter from went awry, meaning dear friend. Okay, so it's 5 letters. We want 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think it can't be went awry, it has to be dear friend. So D, A, F. Daphne, no. Okay, aired, and I wasn't even looking at the letters we have in the crossing. If you aired, you went awry, you messed up. All right, 9 down, paid a horse to eat a steak. Okay, so to eat is often actually a containment indicator. It's saying that one thing is eating, it's going around another thing. But here it's being used as a hidden indicator. It's saying that a state has been eaten by paid a horse. So we can find a word for a state inside paid a horse. And you can find the state Idaho inside paid a horse. Lovely, all right. Luna, she went wild and let loose. Okay. And is often an equal sign. We have went wild, probably an anagram indicator. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Luna, she is being anagrammed, it's going wild, and that means that's going to give us a word meaning let loose. Okay. Word is unleash. If you unleash, you let loose, and unleash has the same letters as Luna, she, just jumbled up. All right, I think now I've just got clues left that I've struggled with. So let's start looking back and see if we can't solve them. All right. Okay, so I think I have this large mustelid one, but I've kind of got it inversely. Right, so I think I know that the answer is going to be a crevice, and I have enough crossing letters now where a fissure is a word for a crevice. And fissure sounds like, and heard homophone indicator, the word fissure. So maybe there is a large mustelid, some kind of animal, I'm guessing, that is called a fissure. F-I-S-H-E-R. Probably, hopefully. All right, 21 across. Okay. I think it's the word cast contained within Lucas Terriers, but outside being a hidden indicator, I find really tough. Why could that tell you that a word is hidden in Lucas Terrier? I mean, I suppose if you read it really cryptically, it could be telling you to get rid of the side of Lucas Terrier, but I probably want it to be outsides. Get rid of the sides of Lucas Terrier, and even then, I mean, it's a really tough. I don't know. Maybe I'm not understanding how it works, but if I am, I think that's quite brutal. But cast is inside Lucas Terrier, and a caste is another word for a class of people, right? Okay. I think the answer for let's cut crazily with abandon, we read it right, is an anagram of let's cut. It's going crazy, and it means with abandon. I think the word is scuttle, and I'm not too sure about with abandon meaning scuttle, because if you scuttle, you move really fast, right? You scuttle across the room, and I've heard that before, but I kind of want the literal to be move with abandon to give you scuttle, but maybe it's just looser than I would like. I think it's fine, and I think that is the answer. Okay. So yeah, if you move with abandon, you scuttle. That gives us all the crossing letters we're going to get for forces, wet, anagrammed, like some eyeliners. I just don't even know how to think about this. I'm sorry if this is really obvious to you at home, but I just don't know if I know this phrase or if I don't know how to read this. Crow's feet. I don't know how that's like some eyeliners, but it's the only word I can make with the missing letters, so that's something I'm going to have to look up after the video. If I figure out what that means, I will leave a little edit to explain it to you as well. Hi, Future Sam here. Crow's feet are the wrinkles that appear in the corner of your eye with age that kind of are free-pronged, take the appearance of crow's feet. So you could call crow's feet eyeliner in the sense that they are a kind of feature of skin that lines your eye. Authorization to notice deceit out loud. I think the answer is license, but I don't like it. Again, I think this set is wonderful, but I don't know that I think this is a fair clue. If you notice deceit, you might say that you have a sense for lies or a lie sense. And that sounds like license, which is authorization. But I think really, to make this fair, you'd want it to be deceit, notice, lie, sense. Yeah, I'm not super convinced with this, but I think it's right. which leaves stick here after now. Okay, so we thought we were looking for a word meaning stick, and it's here going after now. We have the two E's, maybe here just goes in the clue. And now is AD, because currently it's AD, and if you stick to something, you adhere to it. You stick to a principle, you adhere to the principle. That one actually was pretty fair, not too tough. I don't know why I didn't get it. All right, and that's the puzzle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm sorry for the issues with my camera halfway through the video. I hope that not having my face as you solved was not too much of an impediment for your enjoyment of the video. But with that, I really appreciate your time. I hope I made cogs turn, and I will see you tomorrow for a new daily clue.